Hello folks, Shintigercurl here, that dude in the straw hat, bringing you yet another awesome video. It's Monday night, you know what that means? It's time for some good old Raw. It is the night after Extreme Rules, and a lot of shit went down. So, what's gonna happen? I got my notes. Let's get started. We open the show as the only way you can, with the return of the architect, the sellout, the sniveling little coward, the man, the champ, Seth Rollins, coming out, product just oozing from his hair, comes out to a thunderous ovation, and of course, he appreciates all the help that the fans have given him in his time recovering from his, well, at the time when his leg basically exploded, and then reverts to his heel persona, telling everyone that he is not interested in their cheers because they didn't pay him any respects. Please, please, Seth, forgive us. We didn't know what we had until we got Roman Reigns. So yeah. So anyway, he talks about how he wants to get back what he never lost. The title he never lost, since he had to give it up due to his career-threatening injury. And of course, speaking of said title, Roman Reigns comes out. Now, I've mentioned this before on Twitter as well as other times. Okay, Roman is the guy, but really, who wants to be that guy? No one wants to be that guy. I certainly don't want to be that guy. You certainly don't want to be that guy. I mean, it seems Roman Reigns wants to be that guy. You know who I'd rather be? I'd rather be the man. Everyone wants to be the man. Because the old saying goes, to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And right now, Seth Rollins was, still, and always will be, the man. They tease a little battle between them, but Seth says, nah, you're not worthy of it yet. So Shane O'Mac comes out, shuffling as always, and says that since Seth, even though Seth did kind of screw over Roman at WrestleMania 31, thankfully, he says that pretty much that Seth has a reason to be first in line for a title shot against Roman. And so it's set. The main event for the next pay-per-view, Money in the Bank, will be Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. Count the days, Roman. That belt's going back where it belongs. On a champion who can actually wrestle. Next up, we have the first of our mini matchups leading to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which of course will lead to Money in the Bank, which is of course the highlight of the pay-per-view being the Money in the Bank ladder match. For those of you who don't know, 7 men will participate in a ladder match. At the top of the ladder will be a briefcase. Inside that briefcase will contain a contract for a world title match anytime, anywhere within the next calendar year of that challenger's choosing. They can choose whatever event that they wanted to have, regardless if the champ is ready or not. There have been many who have held the Money in the Bank briefcase and have rocketed to world title status. Edge, Kane, Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler, famously, The Miz, CM Punk twice. Let's see, who else won it? Ken Kennedy won it one year, but he got fired, so they had to give it back to Edge. So Edge is a 2-time Money in the Bank winner. And, of course, last year's winner, who was it? Yeah, I forgot who was the last year's winner of the Money in the Bank match. Yeah, it was Sheamus. Yeah, Sheamus was a Money in the Bank winner. And, of course, Seth Rollins was Mr. Money in the Bank, who cashed in at WrestleMania 31. The first ever to do so in the history of the match. So anyway, tonight we'll have some qualifying matches to determine who gets to be in this prestigious match for that chance of a lifetime. And the first match pits Sami Zayn against a former Money in the Bank winner, Sheamus. This was a very good matchup. Sheamus always surprises me with how well he can work with other guys, especially the more technically proficient ones. Sheamus' style is more of a technical bruiser than just pure power, similar to Rusev in that regard, in a way that he can be surprisingly technical given how he looks and wrestles. This was a very good matchup, and no surprise, Sami Zayn picks up the win. which sends Sheamus over the edge, causing him to attack Apollo Crews, who has a match tonight for a shot at the Money in the Bank ladder match. There's a backstage segment where Seth Rollins runs into Steph, thinking that things are going to be just like they were before, with the Authority having his back, with J&J security and what have you. Unfortunately, things have changed, and unfortunately, Seth won't be getting the perks that he usually gets. Next up, the New Day come out with a giant cake to celebrate the birthday for Raw, because tonight marked the 1,200th episode of Monday Night Raw. And they thought someone was going to get caked until the Social Outcasts come out. Now minus one of their members. If you haven't heard, Adam Rose has been officially fired from the company for obvious reasons. If you haven't been reading the dirt sheets, the guy went pretty crazy in the last couple of days. At first, he was just suspended indefinitely. Now, he's gone. So anyway, this leads to our next match. The New Day, all three members, against the Social Outcasts, consisting of Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas, and Mr. Miller, Heath Slater. This is pretty much a squash match. The New Day showed their dominance, completely turned those guys into the jokes they are. 1, 2, 3, they win. And Mr. Miller gets a nice, delicious cake for his trouble. Cake. Next up, we have for our second Money in the Bank qualifying match between another former Mr. Money in the Bank, The Miz, after his Intercontinental title victory, against the man he pinned last night, Cesaro. This was another stellar matchup. Again, people often sell The Miz short. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the next coming of Daniel Bryan, but the guy can work his ass off in the ring, and it showed here. Cesaro, I think Cesaro has somehow got a life cheat code because he keeps pulling new moves out of his ass every week. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying the guy is an amazing in-ring worker. Needless to say, Cesaro picks up the win. Next up, we have our third Money in the Bank qualifying matchup between Chris Jericho, sporting the wounds of war from his Asylum match last night, versus the blue chipper Apollo Crews. This will be Crews' first real challenge since debuting on the main roster. This was probably the weakest of the Money in the Bank matches tonight, because it seemed like they were trying to feel each other out, if you feel what I'm saying. Apollo Crews is infinitely talented, but he's still green around the gills. And working in there with a seasoned veteran like Jericho, it could have ended badly. There was a botch there where Crews got knocked on his back. Jericho went for the lion saw, but at the same moment, Crews went to flip up onto his feet, and they collided. I don't know whether he was going to try to counter the lion saw into something else. I don't know. Miscommunication, because the two haven't really worked together. I think this is the first time they've worked together. So, yeah, that kind of spoiled the match. The match is still good. It's just not as good as the other matches. And that's including Cesaro versus Miz. But anyway, surprisingly enough, Chris Jericho picks up the win. Surprising that Jericho has never won the match, even though he invented the Money in the Bank ladder match. Next up, we got Kaz coming out with a surprise guest, Enzo Amore. That's right, the smack talker, Skywalker, the guy with the gift of gab and the gift of jab, has made his return after that horrific botch that he took at Payback a few weeks ago. Although I don't think he's still clear. I don't think he's not clear to wrestle just yet, because of he's still under concussion, but he still can be out there for Kaz. And of course, they call it the Dudley Boys, whom they've had a rivalry with since they first debuted on the main roster. Which leads us into our next match, Kaz versus Bubba Ray. This once again shows that Big Kaz is an untapped talent. He's a diamond in the rough. He really shows off what he can do with all that size. And of course, we had some outside interference in mid-play between Devon and Enzo. But nonetheless, Big Kaz picks up the win. Next up, we have Charlotte coming out with her title after her really fucked up win against Natalya, thanks to the help of Dana Brooke. She comes out there with her muscle, as Rick would call her Arn Anderson to her Ric Flair. And he says about how proud he is of his daughter and how she was destined for greatness. And then what follows is what I've been saying all along about Charlotte Flair, how she is such a phenomenal heel that she doesn't need her father to do it. And what she does next is pretty much, she burned Rick. She burned him. So bad I had to go to the nearest Pokemon store and pick up some fucking burn heal for him. She goes on about how he was never there for her. How he was an absentee father. How she got sick and tired of being compared to him. How she was tired of living in his shadow and she doesn't need him anymore. And Rick, putting on the waterworks, not as good as the Big Show or Tommy Dreamer, but still pretty damn good, puts on the waterworks, and she pretty much just humiliates him. And he cries for all it's worth. She kicks him out of the ring, and he walks back like an old dog. Even backstage, he even gets a nice hug from Arn Anderson. That's right, the Enforcer, another member of the legendary Four Horsemen. And he's so shook up that he doesn't even talk to the interviewer, and he just wants to leave, and he just gets the fuck out of there. Next up, Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler, another Money in the Bank qualifying match. But there was a nice little vinaigrette backstage as Baron Corbin talks about how he beat Dolph Ziggler in the no DQ match they had last night when he punched him in the dick. It says, I punched him in the dick because I could. Ziggler comes out and says that he's a technical wrestler. He could wrestle circles around Baron. Baron doesn't give two shits about that being a technical wrestler because he just wants to beat people up. And so Dolph decides to challenge him to a technical wrestling match, whatever that is, next Monday. But first he's going to show him what he can do in the next matchup coming up, which is Dean versus Dolph. This started off surprisingly technical. A lot of people are surprised of the technical ability of Dean Ambrose, even because he's something of a brawler. He's very much like Stone Cold, very good mat sense and tactical and technical ability, but he just prefers to brawl. This is a nice little meshing of styles. Dean once again shows us that he is a fucking mutant because he doesn't seem to be bothered by the fact that he had a hellacious match against Jericho in an Asylum match. It went back and forth. It really could have gone either way, but in the end, Dean fucking Ambrose is going to the Money in the Bank ladder match. And finally, the main event. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles. Let me repeat that. Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles in the main event. And not just any match, this is another Money in the Bank qualifying match. Before the match, AJ talks about how if there was no interference from the BlizzCliz and the Usos, he would have had Roman dead to rights. And he admits that Roman is a lot better than he thought he was, but he's still not phenomenal. The BlizzCliz takes offense to that as Gallows and Anderson come out, and they pretty much break up because things. So yeah, no more BlizzCliz backup for AJ. We might have to call in a certain Irish demon for this one. So anyway, we get to the match proper. I thought this match was going to have some shenanigans with some interference by the BlizzCliz or something else, but no. This was a straight wrestling match, and bar none, the best fucking match on the card. I was marking out just with the idea of these two. One from ROH and one from TNA. Duking out and the main event of Raw. This was a phenomenal match. Great in-ring work. I can't do it justice. It's not very long, but it's good for what it was worth. My God, it was amazing. Great spots, great in-ring psychology, great moves, amazing athleticism from both men. But in the end, a pop-up powerbomb later, Kevin Owens heading to Money in the Bank. That shot. So yeah, that was Raw. My thoughts? A very, very good Raw. it built up the storylines from last night's pay-per-view. We saw the return of Seth Rollins, and now we have our own main event for the next pay-per-view, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the world title. We've also got some good build-up for the Money in the Bank ladder match, and as it stands, there are 7. Overall, there are 7, but right now we know 5 people who are going to be in that match. Will be Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Chris Jericho, Dean Ambrose, and Kevin Owens. We still got 2 spots remaining. So, really depends on who the 2 spots... I can't really say my pick right now because I want to see who else they're going to fill it out with. But this year's Money in the Bank could be a very, very exciting one. So yeah, that's my video. You like what you see? Like, comment, subscribe below. Got any questions, comments, or better yet, question of the video? Out of all the current members of the current participants of the Money in the Bank ladder match, who do you want to see win the briefcase the most? I know it's a tough decision. We got a nice little field going. Titty Master, Mr. Wrestling, El Generico, Lionheart, Claudio Castagnoli. Leave it below. I'll get back to you. You already know how to support the channel. I'm not even going to say. You already know. Hit me up on Twitter, hashtag Captain Luffy, or hit me up on Tumblr, Shintigercurl. That's all you need to know. So, until next time, Shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, saying good evening, and